So in this clip, we are going to see Trump sycophants, MAGA loyalists, Jason Rantz and Lydia Moynihan fighting for their life, trying to justify and trying to defend the reasoning as to why Donald Trump went ahead and fired Pam Bondi. As usual, let's watch the clip in full. I'm going to hold my commentary, my perspective, my thoughts towards the end. Let's get into it.
Good evening. I'm Abby Phillip in New York. And tonight, another Trump cabinet official is fired in less than a month. This time, it's Pam Bondi, who is officially out as Attorney General. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche will now take over as acting AG. Trump made that announcement on Truth Social this morning, calling Bondi a great American patriot and a loyal friend. He says she'll be taking over a private sector job soon. Bondi called her tenure the honor of a lifetime and the most consequential first year of the DOJ in American history. But sources tell CNN that Trump had grown frustrated on multiple fronts, one of them being that she hadn't investigated or prosecuted enough of his political opponents. But it wasn't for lack of trying. Trump had called for prosecutions into Letitia James, Adam Schiff, James Comey, but all of those efforts have so far fallen flat. The department had also opened investigations into a number of Trump's other political opponents, including Bill Clinton, former CIA Director John Brennan, and Fed Chair Jerome Powell. The Democratic lawmaker who told service members not to follow illegal orders, and all of that with the blessing of President Trump. Now, that was all after Bondi said this in her confirmation hearing when she was up for the job.
I will not politicize that office. I will not target people simply because of their political affiliation. Justice will be administered even-handedly throughout this country. No one will be prosecuted, investigated because they are a political opponent. There will never be an enemies list within the Department of Justice.
Our sources also say that Trump had grown frustrated with Bondi's handling of the Epstein files. Here's a recap of how that went over the last year.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump.
You're grilling me on President Trump and some photograph with Epstein? Come on. The FBI, along with U.S. Attorney Pirro and all of our prosecutors, have worked tirelessly for months, sifting through evidence that had been sitting at the FBI with the Biden administration for 4 long years. None of them asked Merrick Garland over the last 4 years one word about Jeffrey Epstein. How ironic is that? You know why? Because Donald Trump, the Dow right now is over. The Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing.
Ellie Honig is here with us in our fifth seat, former federal prosecutor in his own right. Ellie, she's in the unenviable position of being hated by a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. Yeah. What do you think is the real reason that she shouldn't have a job right now?
Well, the reason she shouldn't have a job or the reason she doesn't have a job? The reason she shouldn't have a job is because she carried out Donald Trump's overtly political agenda to prosecute people who wronged him politically. The reason she doesn't have a job is because she wasn't good enough at it. And I do think Pam Bondi can perhaps be a source of cross-ideological agreement. So we have Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives. Does anyone at this table think that Pam Bondi was a good attorney general? Speak now.
Yeah, I think in some cases she was effective, in others she wasn't.
Okay.
I think the handling of the Epstein files undoubtedly was botched from the beginning.
Donald Trump disagrees with you because he just fired her, so he doesn't think she was any good.
Well, no, he's not saying that she had a failed first year, clearly.
Oh, it's a ringing endorsement.
Done it a long time ago. I mean, clearly, she didn't do what he wanted to get done in that particular position over the course of the year. But that doesn't mean that there were any successes.
What's the best thing she did?
Specifically at crime, crime is down. She's been making a point to go after actual criminals, including cartel-tied cells in this country. She also was the head of the AG's office, as we actually went after the Antifa groups that people pretended didn't exist for about 6 years.
These are great talking points. Let me give you some stats.
It's truth.
Crime is down across the country. That's a great thing. That's a good thing. Pam Bondi presided over the dismissal and closing out of 23,000 criminal cases, federal cases, gun cases, drug cases, violence cases, more than any DOJ since 2004. She got rid of those cases. Why? So they could do more immigration prosecutions. So yes, crime rates fell. You can attribute that to a whole lot of factors. Never believe anyone who tells you.
They were falling long before Trump.
They were falling, but the fact is,
immigration cases. And
DOJ.
Well, no crime.
Would you rather prosecute an immigration case or a gang
crime was
case?
falling at historic rates before Trump came into office. That's also true. But I want to get to why she was fired, because I think this is important. She was fired because she didn't go after Trump's political opponents. Now, Trump has put in somebody, his former personal attorney, who I presume he thinks, at least on a temporary basis, will do that. Is this where we're at right now in this country, where it's just like one attorney general after another until he gets the prosecutions that he wants?
Well, I think that's a certain conclusion that you could jump to. I mean, yeah, this is the second cabinet figure in a few weeks who's been fired. I think most Republicans would look at that, though, and say, look, Trump is eager to find somebody who is competent. And when you look at the things that a lot of Republicans are eager for the attorney general to do, I don't think the lawfare is, and I think as Jason mentioned, a lot of it's going after Antifa. That's a big part of it. A lot of it's going after some of the foreign money that's funding Code Pink and some of the protests.
But he wants
going
the lawfare. I mean, is that appropriate?
Well, so So no, but I wouldn't frame it that way. The same way that you guys didn't frame it when Steve Bannon was targeted.
No Democrat sent out a tweet asking to prosecute 3 specific people.
You had people who said that you wanted to throw Donald Trump
from a Democrat?
in jail, and you wanted to take him off of a ballot so he
Who are
couldn't
these people?
run for
Who are these
president.
people?
The entire state of Colorado and the Democratic Party.
Okay, so
clearly, this idea, the framing, I think your point is a valid one when it comes to
that is very
optics.
different from the
Why?
president directing his attorney general in public, mind you, as he did. Pam, I've reviewed the 30 statements. What about Comey, Adam Schiff, Letitia? He publicly, right? He's doing this. It's very different from a state doing whatever they're doing, from a local, district attorney prosecuting a case. That is different. When the president says, why are you not prosecuting these people who I hate?
He believes broke laws.
Okay,
now,
but
you can disagree as to whether or not they broke any laws, and you can have a fair argument, I think, about the appropriateness of the president doing it, but I do think that the framing is important.
So you're defending it then?
I'm defending the president saying someone, in his view, broke the law, and we should be targeting that person. The same exact way Democrats said that about Donald Trump, and it wasn't framed as Donald Trump is being targeted as a political
Jason,
adversary.
you're making that sound as if it's reasonable, and it's not, okay? The president making a unilateral determination in his own mind that somebody has broken the law without providing, by the way, any proof of that, and then directing an investigation into that person is
calling for an investigation.
That is not appropriate. Okay, I'm sorry. If you don't like, partisan prosecutions, you should also not like that.
Even if we take it as a given that there was prosecutorial overkill against Donald Trump, and I've said publicly that I believe there was, especially from the state actors, and even to an extent from some of the federal prosecutions from Jack Smith. That does not justify going out and charging Letitia James for mortgage fraud, and that was rejected by a judge and a grand jury. It does not justify charging Jim Comey. I'm no fan of Jim Comey with an age-old, flimsy perjury charge. It does not justify trying to charge Mark Kelly and Alyssa Slotkin for something that is simply not a crime. And if this is going to be the way things go, you did it to me, I'm going to do it to you. Are you okay with, let's say there's a Democrat, hold on. Let's say there's a Democratic president. There will be a Democratic president at some point in this country's future. Are you okay with them saying, this is the game now, we're gonna go seek out everyone on the other side who displeased us?
Unfortunately, that's already a talking point. J.B. Pritzker is already talking about Project 2029 and trying to put Trump officials in jail.
I'm not okay with that.
Unfortunately, this seems to be a sort of tit-for-tat thing. And I guess, to your point, I mean, the system is working, right? So there was evidence that Letitia James may have committed some mortgage fraud that was looked into, and ultimately a jury of her peers decided that wasn't legitimate. So I think there was...
I'm glad the system is working against the person who's actively trying to destroy it. I mean, the beautiful part of America is that we have institutions and checks and balances that are separate from the president. You can see time and time again, Donald Trump is trying to bully other institutions under his wing. So we can look at Jerome Powell at the Federal Reserve. If you look at countries where the president is able to control monetary policy, these are some of the worst countries in the world, right? You do not want the president controlling monetary policy. This has happened in countries like Venezuela. Let's take this over to the DOJ. You do not want the president directing the DOJ to prosecute people, to indict people, and that is exactly what we saw. We just watched a clip of Pam Bondi saying, there will never be an enemies list at the DOJ. Well, Abby just read off an enemies list that Donald Trump quite literally sent out. Has any Democrat, did Joe Biden do that? Is there any example of Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, or any of them having an enemies list?
Letitia James and Alvin Bragg, people literally
no.
ran on putting Donald Trump in jail. I think we can all agree that there was politicization.
So,
against
but in
Donald
answer
Trump
to
there.
his question, which is important, is there an example that you all can cite of the president directing the investigation
Joe
or the
Biden's staff did
prosecution
not tweet on his behalf.
into
any of that.
anyone?
No, they didn't put it out
Okay.
there in public.
All right, well,
That's the
good.
difference.
I'm glad that we're in agreement on that.
There's agreement on that.
Ta-
The president is more public about this, and I don't think that is a smart move from
It's not that he's more public about it. It's that he is doing it when there is zero evidence that it was done by the people that he claims did it to him. You guys are attributing investigations in Georgia and investigations in New York to Joe Biden with no proof. That doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry, it does not make sense.
There was a tradition that the President of the United States, the White House, did not talk to the Department of Justice. When I was in the White House, literally, you couldn't call the Department of Justice and ask about a press release without talking to the counsel's office first and getting clearance. This idea that the President of the United States can direct the Attorney General to go after his individual enemies is going to corrupt the entire system. And it will go, when it starts to be a Democratic president doing this, people on the table will howl when they see it. But I'll say this about Donald Trump. Nobody can program the news better than this guy. He flailed last night. Last night, he gave a horrible speech. He's bad at doing it. I understand why he doesn't do it, because he wasn't very good at it. He didn't give us any headline about the war. And this morning, he dropped this news about Pam Bondi. And now the headline of the news is about Pam Bondi. And we're not talking about that bad speech he gave about last night.
Don't worry. We'll be talking about the war coming up. Let me play. This is Todd Blanche at CPAC a couple of days ago, just to give you a sense of what kind of positioning he is in going into this new role.
There is not a single man or woman at the Department of Justice who had anything to do with those prosecutions. Director Patel has cleaned house there too. There isn't a single man or woman with a gun, federal agent, still in that organization that had anything to do with the prosecution of President Trump.
So, Ellie, I mean, there are a lot of problems with that, including that many of the people that they're talking about are just regular civil servants doing their jobs, people who are asked to work on cases and who did them, and they were purged.
You know what galls me about that? So Todd Blanche and I were at the SDNY together. We were contemporaries. We started within a year or two of each other. And he is talking about and ginning up cheers for the fact that they fired people just like what he once was. Third year, fourth year, fifth year, line AUSAs, federal prosecutors doing their job faithfully. I have problems with some of the things Jack Smith did, but to fire the paralegals and the support staff and the FBI agents and the kid on a detail from the Eastern District of Missouri who's in his third year, that's exactly what Todd used to be himself. And to go in front of that crowd, it's a different person. I don't recognize him now. And I've defended Todd Blanche publicly. When he was representing Donald Trump in the hush money case, I publicly said the criticism of Todd Blanche for defending Donald Trump is ridiculous and unfounded. But he knows what he's doing now is dead wrong. And to Jamal's point, the fundamental line that's been breached here, you can argue about who did it, but it's getting worse now, is crossing over prosecution with politics. That's a dangerous mix, no matter who's doing it.
Yeah, I mean, and look, one of the investigations was into Trump's role in January 6th. And if I'm old enough to remember, Republicans said that that was the way that Donald Trump needed to be punished for what he did on that day. And now all of a sudden, it's some kind of partisan prosecution. Mitch McConnell was on the Senate floor saying that that is the methodology, not impeachment. Take him to court, charge him with a crime. And so that's how the system worked. And now all of those people have lost their jobs because the DOJ is a very different place today than it has been in recent years. Ellie Honig, thank you. We appreciate you. Coming up next, new CNN.
Interesting topic and interesting debate. Look, the reality, and I'll just give my kind of thoughts very briefly when it comes to Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi was a mess. She was a mess. The last hearing that she done was one of the probably worst hearings that I believe that we've ever seen. And she knows it as well. Even that point where she starts speaking about the Dow, you know, it was a word salad. And unfortunately for her, I believe that word salad had a massive influence on the reason as to why she was ousted and she was fired as the Attorney General. I genuinely do believe it. You know, the Dow comment is embarrassing. Anything to do with her now, all you see in the comments is, oh, but the Dow's not over 50,000. That's all it is. Now, the reality is this. I'm very intrigued to see who is going to be the next person, because the reality is the next person, Donald Trump, is going to want them to do his bidding. He's going to want them to do everything that it is that he says. And the problem with being an attorney general for Donald Trump, especially when he's in this lawfare kind of mindset, the problem is this: you can't bring charges against someone unless there's something there to bring charges on them about. That's the reason as to why everybody on Donald Trump's list thus far, every single one has failed and every single one has fallen by the wayside. Every single one. So it's going to be very intriguing to see what's going to happen moving forward. Let me know your guys' thoughts on this exchange in the comment section below. And hit subscribe, like the video, hype the video. I'll see you guys in the next clip.